Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Barakaha Kodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Revelation chapter 11, verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. And those dead bodies are the spiritually dead bodies of the children of Israel, which consists of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans lying spiritually dead in the streets of the so-called great city, the United States of America. And for 2/3 of the nation of Israel in the United States of America, they are spiritually dead. They want to be everything else under the sun but who they are, the children of Israel. They want to refer to themselves as Black, African American, Hispanic, Latino, Mexican, Native American, Cherokee, Choctaw, and they want to follow all these other false religions and philosophies out here. Oh, I'm a Christian. I'm a Buddhist. I'm Roman Catholic. I'm a Muslim. I'm even an atheist. Oh, I'm part of the Black unconscious community. I'm Kemetic. We're the ancient Egyptians. I'm even a red-blooded, patriotic American. I got my citizenship. Nay, for 2/3 of the nation of Israel who refuse to return under their power, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, and want to remain spiritually dead in the streets of the United States of America, you're going to get taken out with these other heathen nations in the U.S. when those 200 million nuclear missiles hit this place and turn it into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards. And the reason that this so-called great city, the United States of America, is also known as spiritual Sodom and Egypt is because, for one, the United States of America is the #1 country that pushes that alphabet agenda beginning with LG onto the entire planet through their political and economic means. When the U.S. goes and overthrows another country and sets up a puppet government, what follows? Democracy, women's rights with feminism, and pushing equality through the alphabet group beginning with LG. And then also the U.S. heavily pushes that alphabet agenda beginning with LG through its media, like Hollywood and these social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. And for two, the reason the United States of America is known as spiritual Egypt is because it's serving in the exact same function that ancient Egypt served for the children of Israel, as a place of hardcore bondage and slavery. And also the United States of America has a lot of the same practices and imagery that ancient Egypt had. Just look at the back of your $1 bill. You've got the pyramid with the all-seeing eye. The Washington Monument is an obelisk. That award at the Oscars goes back to an ancient god, Egyptian god known as Ptah. And you've got pyramids all over this country. Just look at the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas. And Luxor was a name of an ancient city in Egypt. You've got pyramids in Tennessee. And you've got a city in Tennessee called Memphis. And also getting your hair lined up, fishnet stockings, birth control, bread and beer were all heavy practices in ancient Egypt. But in this video, I'll be dealing with why that so-called great city, the United States of America, is called spiritual Sodom, with another example of the madness this country pushes, ruining the minds of the people, especially you Israelites. This is an article from the nationalpost.com titled, "We Totally Stalked Them. Teachers reveal their creepy tactics to recruit kids to the," and you can read those letters, plus clubs, and that great city, which spiritually is called Sodom. Leaked materials from the California, and of course it's in California, or Hollywood also happens to be, and all that other freakism, Teachers Association Conference CTA in Palm Springs have shown how teachers are attempting to subvert parents on their children's inclusion in LG plus clubs and tactics for tracking their internet use. Complete madness. Ruining the minds of the people and subverting traditional values to push this freakism onto them. The documentation and audio files from California's largest teachers union meeting at CTA were sent to Abigail Shrier, who confirmed that their authenticity with 3 participants from the conference. The event was held from October 29th to the 31st, 2021, and entitled 2021 L Plus Issues Conference Beyond the Binary, Identity and Imagining Possibilities. Hey, this is the same country that also has underage drag queens like Lactatia performing at adult alphabet group bars and pretending like it's normal. This is how things are supposed to be. Topics ranged from advising teachers on best practices for subverting parents, handling conservative communities, and discussions of school principles of gender identity and sexual orientation. The workshops provided at the conference encourage teachers to create a safe environment that fosters bravery to explore sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression, while others taught teachers on how to form happy straight alliance clubs and other forms of L plus clubs for middle teachers. Such clubs were promoted as answering questions on how to deal with meddlesome parents who might not want their children participating in such a club because they don't want their children to grow up to be suicidal, schizophrenic weirdos out here. One speaker noted that the clubs are not official, so do not hold a roster of members or keep any records. In the audio files, a Buena Vista middle school teacher and L Plus club leader, Lori Caldera, described how the lack of record keeping allows for a legal loophole so she can lie to parents about their children's whereabouts and attendance of such clubs. And if we look this chick up, I bet she looks like a interesting character, a colorful character. Another middle school teacher named Kelly Baraki noted that she refers to her club as the Equity Club, or UBU, rather than GSA, in order to further prevent parents from knowing what their children are attending. And just in, I believe it was in Florida recently, there was a school field trip to a man's adult L Plus club so they could teach the children about equality and accepting everybody. Just complete madness. Bakari spoke of mitigating any decline in L Plus club membership. We started to try and identify kids when they were doing virtual learning. We totally stalked what they were doing on Google when they weren't doing schoolwork. It sounds like pedophiles grooming people to me. Shrier further revealed that speakers at the conference were proud to share their tactics for tracking their students' Google searches and other internet activity. Bakari described how she and fellow teachers make note of those kids and the things that they bring up with each other in chats or email or whatever. Others described eavesdropping on hallway conversations to target 6th graders who were then sent personal invites to L Plus gatherings and clubs. This information was then withheld from the participants as parents. Bakari said, "We use our observations of kids in the classrooms, conversations that we hear, to personally invite students, because that's really the way we kind of get the bodies in the door, right?" And remember, doing all this without their parents knowing about it, using subversive tactics. In order to create trust with their students, Caldera said that she volunteered to read the morning announcements. She notes that this allows her to control the information that goes home. This year, students have been allowed to put openly L plus content in our morning announcement slides. Caldera went on to describe how the principal of her school flinches because of the 3-member team the teachers has assembled in her middle school, 2 non-binary and 1 fluid student. When it comes to handling parental pushback, Caldera and Bakari described doing a mind trick on our 6th graders, wherein the anti-bullying presentations they provide will detail the gender stuff first. They hope that this will ensure their students go home and discuss the latter aspects of the presentation with their parents. Both teachers went so far as to mock a parent who pushed back on this type of information being provided to their children. When another parent pushed back, Caldera's principal told the parent to send their children to a private school, which he described as a win. With each passing day, it's getting worse and worse out here. Just saying anything about the LG group could get you labeled as a bigot and get you a hate crime. And with the trajectory this society's taken, you'll be looked at as a weirdo for being a straight man or woman. That'll be seen as the minority, while the other half will be seen as the majority. Hey, everybody's on the spectrum, right? Hey, a lot more people just happen to lean towards the more colorful side of the spectrum than the more conservative side of the spectrum. Caldera noted that she and her colleagues have acted with great integrity in the past several years that we have run their L plus clubs. We never crossed the line. We've wanted to, but we never have. And nothing but just complete madness in this article, further showing why the United States of America, that so-called great city, is known as spiritual Sodom in the scriptures. And for all this madness that this country is pushing, especially with this Sodom agenda, it's going to take part in the same judgment that ancient Sodom and Gomorrah took place in for pushing the very similar wicked practices such as what you're seeing now. It was taken out with fire and brimstone from the sky. But in this case, that fire and brimstone from the sky is going to be those 200 million nuclear-tipped ICBMs. But now let's get back into some precepts. This is Nahum chapter 3. I'm going to start at verse 1. And when you read this chapter, it's talking about the capital city of the Assyrian Empire, Nineveh. But besides being known as spiritual Sodom in Egypt in the scriptures, the United States of America is also known as Babylon the Great, as well as spiritual Assyria, spiritual Nineveh. Nahum chapter 3 verse 1, woe or destruction to the bloody city. And the United States of America is the bloodiest city out here. Just look at the history of the U.S. Nothing but rape, robbery, murder, and genocide to get this landmass. Take it from the Northern Kingdom, or the so-called Native Americans, as well as the Latinos, and then bring in the Southern Kingdom from the west coast of Africa into this country to serve in hardcore bondage and slavery. And then after slavery ended, that Reconstruction era, which was horrific. All the way up until today, what do you have? Planned Parenthood in our neighborhoods advocating for our women to get abortions, them pushing black and hip hop and thug culture on our people to further ruin their minds, saying you're not the Israelites, you're Mexican, black, African American, Latino, Native American, etc., etc., giving us poisonous food and water for our people to eat and drink. You Edomites in this country as a whole, has a hell of a lot to pay for afflicting the apple of the Most High's eye, the children of Israel. It is full of lies. Democracy is a lie. Feminism is a lie. The LG group is a lie. The list goes on and on. And robbery, again, how was this country taken? Through rape, robbery, and murder. And when the U.S. government goes to these other countries and overthrows their sovereign leaders, they set up puppets so they can rob that country of its resources and fill those people's minds with their lies. Again, democracy, feminism, and that LG group. The prey departeth not, and the prey hasn't departed. Unto this day, we are yet in our captivity, as it says in the book of Baruch in the Apocrypha. so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans in the United States of America, and also who is the bulk that makes up the prison industrial complex, you so-called Negroes and Latinos. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 4. Because of the multitude of the whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, and what is Babylon the Great known as in Revelation chapter 17? That harlot, that whore, the mistress of witchcrafts, and best believe that feminism, democracy, the rule of the demon, as well as that alphabet group beginning with LG, is heavy witchcraft. It's witchcraft to make a young child or even a grown person think, oh, I was born in the wrong body. I may be the opposite gender. You know what? Not just that, I may not even be a person at all. I may be a dog in my spirit, a fish. You get the idea. That selleth nations through her whoredoms, pushing out this philosophy through Hollywood, Hollyweird, as well as those social media platforms like Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, etc., and families through her witchcrafts. And we just saw from that article how these weirdos are selling families through her witchcrafts. Those teachers coming up with these subversive and underhanded tactics to expose people's children to that alphabet group. Verse 5, behold, I am against thee, saith Yahweh of hosts, and I will discover thy skirts upon thy face, beginning with the men of the Lord, the prophets of the Most High, chiefly through GMS or Great Millstone, going out onto the highways and byways pushing this word, as well as putting up video epistles like this, pushing out that vibration, showing that that so-called great city is the United States of America, that is spiritual Sodom and Egypt, and that it's one of the root causes, along with you Edomites or so-called white people globally, for all the problems going on the face of the earth. And I will shew the nations thy nakedness, and the kingdoms thy shame. And with not just the men of the Lord exposing the wicked ways of the United States of America, but also these truthers out here to some extent, these other nations are seeing the lies and the hypocrisy and the madness and the wickedness of this country and beginning to turn against it and seeing it as that filthy whore that it is. As it says, the nations have drunk of thy wine, and now the nations are mad. And this anger and animosity that's growing amongst these different heathen nations towards the United States of America is going to culminate in them shooting those 200 million nuclear missiles onto this place. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 2. I'm going to read verses 8 to 9. Woe or destruction again be unto thee Ashur, speaking of Assyria, thou that hidest the unrighteous in thee. And they hide the unrighteous in them by giving all these rights and protections to those in the alphabet group, pushing it as the new standard. This is just the normal way of living. O thou wicked people, remember what I did unto Sodom and Gomorrah, destroyed it with fire and brimstone from the sky, whose land lieth in clods of pitch and heaps. Even so also will I do unto them that hear me not, saith the Almighty Yahweh. And hey, was ancient Assyria destroyed with fire and brimstone? No. So this is talking about that spiritual Assyria, as well as that spiritual Sodom and Egypt, the United States of America, which will be destroyed with fire and brimstone and be a land that lieth in clods of pitch and heaps of ash after it's hit with those 200 million nuclear missiles. I'm going to close it out in Isaiah chapter 13. I'm going to start at verse 19. And Babylon, Babylon the Great, spiritual Sodom and Egypt, spiritual Assyria, spiritual Nineveh, the glory of kingdoms, that so-called great city, that golden cup in the Lord's hand, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency shall be as when I overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah with fire and brimstone from the sky. But in this case, again, being that modern day fire and brimstone, those 200 million nuclear missiles, it shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation. Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. After this place is hit with those 200 million nuclear missiles, it's going to be turned into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards where man, woman, or child will never set foot on ever again. And this goes to show that this isn't talking about ancient Babylon, which is in modern day Iraq, because people are still dwelling there to this day. And after a time, only desert creatures are going to dwell in this wasteland, as it says in the next verses. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures. And owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. And the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces. And her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. And best believe that her time is very near to come, and her days are no longer being prolonged. With each passing day, we're getting closer and closer to this wicked kingdom being judged by that modern day nuclear fire and brimstone from the sky for all the wicked, sodomitish, and Egyptian practices that it pushes, as well as being the main country that afflicted the apple of the Most High's eye, the children of Israel, who are again the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim were edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites, mainly from the United States of America. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.